All right, welcome everyone. Today is Wednesday, the 17th of July, 2024, and this is the SIG Cloud Provider office hours. SIG Cloud Provider is a sub-project of Kubernetes SIGs, and as such, we follow their meeting guidelines, which basically means please treat others as you would expect to be treated, or explicitly so, please be kind to each other. And if you'd like to ask a question, please raise your hand and I will call on you. So at the beginning of our meetings, I'm going to come back to the bug triage at the end so we can go through the issues. But we like to give sub-projects time to update, give us any updates they might want to. So if anyone would like to update from a sub-project, please raise your hand and I'll call on you. Okay. I'm not seeing any
Sorry, I
hands going.
was
Oh,
I was
sorry.
trying to find, I swear they moved the hand raise button constantly. I was trying to
Always.
find it.
Yeah.
Um, but I will add a link to the notes, but I want to let you know that Azure donated some cloud credits to CNCF. And so we're in progress of moving a whole bunch of the test grid stuff, including things that affect, you know, uh, cloud provider stuff, Azure Disk, Azure Files, et cetera, moving a whole bunch of tests to CNCF owned infrastructure. So there are a few tracking issues, and I will link to the most interesting one.
Very cool. That is exciting and happy to hear it. It's nice to see the credits program kind of coming into its full force now. So very cool. Thank you. I noticed a few folks just joined. So we were going through giving sub-projects an opportunity to give any updates. So if you'd like to give a sub-project update, please raise your hand and I will call on you. Okay, I'm not seeing any hands going up, so we will move on to our main agenda. So the first topic I added is about the maintainer track for KubeCon NA. The call for papers closes this coming Monday, the 22nd. So if we want to propose something, we probably need to get that done before Monday. We had talked in the past, and I'll see if we still have it here. I think we had talked about the notion of uh, maybe doing a talk about testing. It looks like, potentially me and Chris might be there. So I don't know. Does anybody have thoughts about this, or does anybody have topic ideas they'd like to see from the SIG? Should I put together an abstract about the potential future of testing? I wasn't sure like how much this would be like, can we do maintainer tracks where we talk about kind of the future and what we'd like to do and kind of proposing plans? I don't know how
I think
accepted
it's
that is.
valid. I think it's valid. So I'm just sitting here looking over at the test info repo and thinking there's plenty of work, and you've gone into detail several meetings ago with folks about this, but there's plenty of work around making sure that the testing is still valid and extensible and consumable by the individuated clouds. Because that's kind of the risk, right? Is, oh, everything is scattered to the four winds. Are we testing right anymore? And so maybe that could be your thesis statement, is like, hey, in the aftermath of this exciting, scatter into the four winds, what's going on with testing? What are the blockers we've run into? What are the places that we've made changes? What is the exciting future you could participate in?
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think we need to, what I was thinking was, yeah, like highlighting what has changed since we've gone to the external CCM and how it's affected our testing, highlighting what I think we should be doing in the future, what we'd like to be doing, and then, yeah, kind of like demonstrating where the opportunities are to get involved with that effort and how we can make it better for the future. So that's kind of what I was thinking. But I didn't know if it was too like speculative for a maintainer track talk or not.
We could add some actual experience reports based on, and I'll put it in the notes, but I'll also, oh, I guess you have the notes up. So I'll just put the test migration to do link, specifically there. If you pop that one open, I think the experience reports around the different providers pulling things out of here and finding that they needed to fix a bunch of jobs. Because these are the ones that this is like the to-do list. But there's
That is a
a
mighty
bunch
to-do
of
list.
yeah, and so and obviously Azure is represented in there, but like vSphere and some other things are in there. And then some of it might even be, should we be testing this anymore? Anyway, I don't want to over rotate in this, and I want to make sure we hear from everybody else who has joined the call, who isn't here all the time, to make sure we cover the topics of interest to them. But I think that this, like the changes in testing, and as we migrate these old tests to community clusters, what are we changing about them? Because a lot of these, as you can see, are, um, provider specific.
Yeah. Walter, you've got your hand up.
I mean, I missed the beginning, so if I'm reiterating, I apologize. But the one thing I will mention is, one of the advantages to open source is, it's a lot easier to admit problems. So where we have holes in testing, I don't think we should, in fact, be concerned about admitting that. I think we should embrace it.
Sure.
So if there are places where we're like, yeah, you know what? These are the particular tests that today can only be tested with a cloud provider. And as a result, we have lost this coverage. Help is absolutely a message I think we should be giving in this.
Cool. Yeah, appreciate the viewpoint. I guess, does anybody else have thoughts about this? Because I'm at this point, I'm kind of convinced that I should spend the next day or two putting together an abstract. But does anybody have I guess, other thoughts about this, or maybe, I don't know, dissenting thoughts or anything like that?
I don't dissent. I think this is very salient to make sure that we're testing everything we want to test, but also maybe there are tests that don't need to be in there at all.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's kind of a call to action too, to kind of let people know where we're going after we complete kind of like the first big, raison d'etre for the SIG, which is, and I just looked at the KEP the other day because I think we've completed all the checklist stuff in the issue for the KEP. So I think we're at the final stage where we just need to move that KEP to stable for 1.32, and I think we'll be all set with that. So that'll be like a huge accomplishment for the SIG, as like that was the primary motivation. And now the next part will be like, okay, now let's get back to having like a high quality testing kind of scenario for all this stuff and everything. So, I think it's kind of cool to start talking about the next direction that the SIG, could take in a large way. So, okay, I'll put together an abstract, or at least a first draft and an abstract, and post it into the SIG channel, and I'll ping, probably Bridget and Walter, and anybody else can see it there if they want to. And yeah, if it looks good, we'll propose it then. Okay, next topic, Peter and Anish, you want to talk about Bootstrap RBAC for external CCMs. So please take it away.
Thank you. For context, Anish and I work at Datadog, and we run self-managed clusters across a variety of cloud providers. And so I wanted to get some input from the audience here about we have a problem and we're wondering how other people solve it, and whether there's an official recommendation around how to solve it, or whether it would be appropriate to improve how upstream handles this scenario. So before the out of tree migration, when all of the cloud controllers ran in Kube Controller Manager, the Bootstrap RBAC that Kube API server creates on brand new clusters includes RBAC for Kube Controller Manager. And this means that when you launch all of the control plane components for a brand new cluster, they're all able to work as expected without needing to make any requests to the Kubernetes API. They all work out of the box. And from our testing so far with our migration to the external cloud controller managers, is that they require their own RBAC to be applied to the cluster before they will work correctly. And so this means that we can't provision all of the control plane components without also making requests to the Kubernetes API to create this RBAC. And so I'm wondering, how do other people solve this problem? Today, we run our control plane components, including CCM, as systemd units in VMs, so they aren't pods in a chart or something like that that we're applying. And so how do others solve this? And would it make sense for the Bootstrap RBAC in Kube API server that it creates for brand new clusters to include bindings for CCM in addition to Kube Controller Manager? Hopefully that was, hopefully that makes sense.
It definitely makes sense. And I'd like to give folks a chance to respond here because, like, I think previously, yes, this was part of Kube, the Kube Controller Manager, which was part of kind of the core functionality of Kubernetes. But now, this is something that you have to deploy as an extra piece. So, like, I can tell you on OpenShift, and I'm happy to share a link to this. I'll put it in the agenda. We've written an operator that we use to deploy our CCMs. And so we have like a proper RBAC that we've put together for the CCMs that we have. So like I could show you our thing, we install this during our Bootstrap, we set up the RBAC for the CCMs so that they run in the proper way. So for us, with a, kind of self-contained, self-hosted cluster, we install the RBAC for the CCMs and then we run the CCMs basically. I would be a little hesitant to try and encode some of this into the core, Kubernetes stuff, because I think this still is like an operation for an operator to take control of. When you're installing Kubernetes, you need to be installing the CCM, you need to be, whatever that looks like on your system, because different clouds have different kind of requirements for what they run and different, controllers they run and whatnot. So anyways, I'll put a link to that. And I see, Joel, you got your hand up, please.
Yeah, so I'm also on Mike's team, so similar sort of experience. But what I was going to ask is, how do you actually run the CCM? Do you have like a static pod definition that you're deploying? Like, is there anything there that you're using to bootstrap the cluster initially?
So what we do is each component is a systemd unit. They're not static pods. And then all we do is create the client certificates for each component with the appropriate common names. And then with Intri, the common names are included in the Bootstrap binding, RBAC bindings that are included by default. And that's not the case with the Cloud Controller Manager common name or user in the role bindings.
Okay, so for your pattern, you don't necessarily even have like a cluster admin credential or something that's just installing pods and initial things there.
Not at this point in the provisioning process, where we're still we treat CCM as we create it at the exact same time that we create Kube API server and Kube Controller Manager and Kube Scheduler. But it sounds like with OpenShift, you actually treat it as a deployment that you create after the rest of the control plane is already running. So maybe you don't even consider it part of the control plane.
It's a tricky dance for us because we actually use a Bootstrap node that's separate, that's running static pods, and then the CCM operator is the first thing that runs on the real control plane, runs the CCMs, and then that initializes the nodes, which then allows the rest of the control plane to come across. It's complicated. I wouldn't try and get your head around it. But what I was also going to say is, are you using the there's a -- use service account credentials flag for the controller managers? Do you know if you're using that?
Anish, do you know?
I don't know. I can check in and tell you. But what does the -- use service credentials flag do exactly?
So as part of the Kube controller manager, each of the different controllers within it use their own. They don't actually use a service account, but they basically imitate a service account by claiming their user agent as this is, I am this controller. So part of the bootstrap process for the API servers, it still installs those roles and those role bindings for those service accounts. So if even with CCM, if you're using the use service account credentials flag, all of the controllers within it will use those built-in roles and role bindings still. There is a caveat to that, that to even get to that point of running that, your overall controller manager does still need to have some permissions. And depending on which platform you're on, the built-in roles may or may not actually be sufficient for what you need to do. So I know Mike's put a link into some of the RBAC stuff we have in there. So you'll probably see in there that we have for various platforms, oh, actually, here's an additional role and role binding we're adding for the Cloud Controller Manager service account, which is kind of like that base layer that starts the controllers. But then when you get into the controllers themselves, they should be using the service account credentials with the built-in stuff that Kube API Server still initiates.
So I think we do, I just checked, we do use the use service credentials flag for our VM systemd units that are running the CCM. But we still run into the RBAC problem even. So we're still running into the RBAC problem. And if I'm following you correctly, you're saying that this will use the built-in role bindings that already ship with the main control plane or the main control plane components. But I think what's unique about the situation is that the role exists, but we're not able to at Bootstrap bind that role to the CCM. That's kind of like the central problem, right, Peter?
Yeah, that's what I was saying about the base thing. You have the controller manager and then you have the controllers. So the controller manager itself has different RBAC and is using a different service account to the controllers within it. And the
Okay.
controllers are the ones that will work correctly with that flag. And that's all fine. What you need to sort now is the controller manager base layer, which will normally need permission to list things like nodes, secrets, that kind of stuff.
So you still have something applying that RBAC to the cluster with cluster admin.
Yeah, we basically have this bootstrap process that basically has cluster admin and just fires a bunch of files at the cluster as soon as the Kube API server is up.
Got it.
I guess like a complicating factor here too, and something that might, I guess might lend you to reconsider like using systemd units or whatever to deploy things is, on some cloud providers, there are controllers that want to be deployed like as a daemon set or something. It wants to be on every node, like node manager type stuff. That I think that makes it easier to kind of reconcile the CCMs when you think about them as just another kube manifest that you deploy as opposed to running, at the base layer of the operating system. But I realize everybody's got kind of different requirements for how they want to set up their infrastructure. So just another thought. Walter, please.
Yeah, I'm not sure it'll help that much, but I wanted to give a little context for one of the things Joel was mentioning, which is the difference between the cloud manager or the controller manager permissions and the controller permissions. It's not as obvious from the CCM. That's a leftover of the KCM, but we try to have the same controller manager code under both the KCM and CCM. So if the KCM has reasons to do it, we'd rather just stay consistent. The KCM runs a role. I forget exactly what it is, but it's basically a permission controller that has permissions on everything. And there's exactly one controller which needs that super user level of permissions, and we didn't want all other controllers to have super user level permissions. And so this is why you get that weird separation between the controller manager permissions and the individual controller permissions is specifically so that we can kind of use the principle of least privilege with the controllers. And yeah, so just a little context, but there are some good reasons why we have that separation.
That makes sense. Thank you. So it sounds like.
Oh, and by the way, for whoever's typing, this is not Google. This is Kubernetes. This is all Kubernetes. Sorry about that, Bridget.
So it sounds like we should either just apply a manifest with cluster admin somehow for the missing RBAC, and or consider CCM not in the same layer as the rest of the control plane components and deploy it after the fact.
I think you may have some issues. I mean, the one thing to remember is that you're not going to get nodes to come up without the CCM. So it is still very definitely part of your control plane because you don't get nodes without it.
Yeah.
But if the control plane components like Kube API server, controller manager, scheduler, etc., are all running as system D units, then your cloud controller manager can be the first thing to schedule. You've just got to make sure it tolerates the right taints that will be on the nodes. Like the nodes will be there, they'll be uninitialized. So as long as you can get it to run as a pod and tolerate the right taints, which is how we do it, then that should work. And again, in that repo that Mike linked, we have a it's like package cloud test go, if I remember correctly, that has a whole bunch of stuff in there about how we manage that. Of things like each one of these deployments, because bear in mind our operator runs across like 8 platforms. It's actually the test file. I don't know who's driving. Sorry. There's a whole bunch of stuff in there where it checks like, do they have the right tolerations? Does it have the right, flags that we require for each of the CCMs and that kind of stuff? So that almost acts as a conformance thing. You might want to look at that and what we're checking against there.
Yeah, that's very helpful. Thank you.
Yeah, that was me kind of navigating the code just because I happen to be a little familiar with it. But I think, hopefully Peter and Anish, this is helpful to you. I don't think there is a right way to do it, whether we're talking system D units or manifest. It kind of depends on, maybe your infrastructure requirements or your organizational requirements. But you can see that either way, there's going to be some I don't want to say tricks, but there's going to be some tricks you'll have to play to get it to work. And if you want to load the CCMs as system D units, then you're going to have to change the way that the service credentials are being kind of set up for them. And alternately, if you want to run them as as workloads that actually get registered with the API server, then as Joel was kind of saying, you'll have to make sure that those CCMs can actually schedule and run in a situation where perhaps the Bootstrap node has not yet been initialized or something, and it's waiting for the CCM to initialize it. So as long as you can tolerate all those things, that would be another way to do it. So I guess is that helpful, Peter and Anish? Are there any other questions or comments we can kind of get into here?
No, I think that was great.
Yeah, thank you.
All right, cool. Awesome. So if there's no other topics that people want to add to the agenda, let's go back and look at our, let's see if there's anything that needs to be triaged. Looks like we've got one here from June 1st, although this has already got the provider GCP on it. Let's take a look.
Oh, it looks like some of these are test flakes.
Yeah.
Walter, have you gotten a chance to look at some of the GCP tests?
No, I've been distracted by something else you may be familiar with. All right, can we assign this to me? I just go ahead and assign it. And
Yeah, will do. I was just.
I love
Okay.
the part where he says you may be familiar with, and honestly, that could apply to literally everything. Yes.
Is it triage accepted? I always get this wrong.
I think it's not a dash. I think it's slash
a
triage
space.
space accepted.
Okay.
We should really make both work.
Okay. Chef Taco, you've been officially assigned. Nice.
thank you.
All right, cool. That worked. I'm terrible with these things. Joel can attest. Okay, let's look at the next one here. We've got another flaking test.
Just cut and paste those 2 lines and just.
Okay, fair enough. Appreciate it, Walter. Is it at? Do we do at?
Yeah.
Or
Yes.
I've like already forgotten from just doing it, you know.
But you remembered it was a space, so.
Yeah, well, you know, I'm slowly coming back up to speed here.
I'm disappointed you manually clicked the comment button instead of shift enter.
I'm old school, man. What can I say?
Some of
Shift
us
enter,
aren't
okay.
fancy.
I was gonna say Control R doesn't work, so I'm just.
I always manage to hit that shift enter thing when I don't want to send it yet. So the number of times I send comments that are half composed, I hate the feature.
Can it be turned off?
I wish.
Probably need a grease monkey script for it.
So I am not sure about this one. Like traffic not being distributed equally among the load balancers. This doesn't
What?
seem like it's specifically a cloud provider issue, although it may be an issue with a specific cloud provider.
Well, it mentioned AWS, but it also mentioned horizontal pod auto scaling. So Kirthan, do you have any insights into whether this might be cloud provider specific or not?
Not sure. I can take a look. I think you can assign it to me. I'll take a look today.
Okay, great.
What is your GitHub?
KMALA.
Oh,
Yeah, I
it
think
looks
it's
like
there.
it looks like it's already been assigned and
Okay.
discussed. So what is happening here? Looks like we discussed it back in May. Interesting. Ooh, look at this.
We did, but then it seems like Shane assigned this to himself.
Well, it looks like SIG Network discussed it. I know Shane's on vacation right now.
Okay, and he's asking for needs information, so.
Okay, so maybe we can try to get more information from the reporter.
I mean, I think that's what Shane already did on the last one, but I guess we can try bouncing it through the inbox again.
Yeah.
Okay, well, I mean, we're still waiting on information here, so.
Yeah.
Okay. If we've already looked at that one, I'm guessing we've looked at some of these too, but might as well we're going back a couple months now. I'm just going to look and see, did we comment on this already? No, we did not. Yeah, I don't think this is SIG Cloud Provider related.
I mean, I'm assuming that it's going to be SIG storage given the persistent volume stuff.
Right.
And
What
they're
did Ben the
already
Elder
on
say?
this.
I thought it was Ben was commenting below.
You want me to scroll down here?
Yeah, I thought I saw some more comments, but maybe
The
not.
really weird part is someone removing SIG storage and adding us in, which is like, yeah, no.
Yeah, I'm looking to see what Ben the Elder is saying here. He's talking about out of tree CCM stuff versus in tree. Interesting.
I mean, it seems like they're pinging us because I think that the persistent volume label is the one that's causing issues here. The zone label.
Or you mean the topology label?
Right. Yeah, the topology label. Yeah.
All right. I'm just trying to remember. Topology doesn't. I'm wondering if that's even the right label.
Yeah, it looks like Ben is asking if like this even the right thing is being tested.
Yeah, that sounds like the right question to me.
And hey, this is relevant to, it's like we've come full circle. This is relevant to we don't want to lose test coverage.
Right. Yeah, that label seems a bit suspect to me. I mean, there's a couple things wrong there. I mean, can we go back? Oh yeah. I mean, anything that ends in gke.io is not a label that we are going to set, right? That right off the bat, that does not look like one of our labels.
Oh, what do you think set that? Fascinating.
Well, the funny thing is it's not, their complaint is it's not being set. Right?
Which scheduler is requiring something that you don't set?
I don't know, but this is why I'm sort of like, there's something wrong with what you're expecting. Because like I wouldn't, unless GKE itself is setting this somewhere, this isn't the sort of thing that the CCM would require or would add, right? The CCM is not going to add a GKE.
Do you want to, Mike, do you
label.
want to click on the problematic code? Seems to be here. I'm just curious if that maybe shows the thing Walter isn't expecting.
Yeah, well, I mean, this is storage code.
Yeah. I mean, because unless the end user is, manually writing that GKE.io thing themselves, which seems unlikely, it's coming from somewhere.
Can you just do a control F in here and just look for GKE.io? Yeah.
It's not coming up in that file. There we go.
All right.
Here's this is what we're looking for here.
Topology key. Sounds so fancy.
So presumably this is getting used somewhere.
Well, it's funny because we have equivalent, we do have equivalents of this that we set. I mean, we do have like if it's failure zone, there is a failure zone, I think, key that CCM sets, but we don't set anything that's a GKE namespace. All right. I have it. I don't want it assigned to me, but I will try and take a little bit of a look at it later this week. But right now, this feels like a PV.
You want me just to like CC you here rather than assign it to you, or should I just assign it to you?
You can CC me.
I don't know if you want to if you want me to step it up to an assignment or not. That's
No, please don't. I don't want anyone thinking I'm actively working on it, but I'll try and take some time. And this does not seem like us.
Yeah, it's yeah. All righty. Let's see. Should we go back into April and look at one of these? No, this is something totally
we
different.
acted on at least some of these.
Yeah. I just feel like this one's getting into like feature work now. This is like should spec provider.
I would like to be able to.
Say field selector. I mean,
this is like asking for it to be indexed, as a feature, basically.
Right, but wouldn't that sounds like API machinery to me.
Yeah, I'm trying to understand how Cloud Provider would implement this, but it looks like Neolit thought we would.
Well, and Antonio, I agree with Antonio's last comment. Right, that's API machinery.
Yeah, yeah. Let's summon our expert.
Well, I think we should assign. I mean, I don't even think API machinery is assigned to this bug.
Yeah, we might maybe want to take SIG Cloud Provider off and put SIG API machinery on, because like this sounds, to Walter's point, SIG Cloud Provider is not going to do this. Like if it's going to happen, it would be over an API machinery. We would not.
So what?
So.
Well, and if it's not going to happen, they would be the ones saying it's not going to happen.
So should we do SIG API machinery? Is that how it goes?
Does it have a dash in it?
It's probably,
I don't know.
I can try to pull it up.
And then how do we remove our SIG from it? Is it like unsig or something maybe? Or?
Unsig, oh my goodness. Let's see if I can figure that out.
no.
We're all learning
It's
something today, right?
The
gonna be
full
like
list of
SIG Cloud
commands.
Providers.
All right, here is,
Remove?
I just put in, I'm putting in the chat, the list of prow commands.
Right, I can't.
Yeah,
Oh,
it's,
there we go.
it's, I think it's remove dash sig. Yep, exactly. I think it's
No.
remove dash sig.
All right. Obviously I can't. My eyes are not working here. Did I blow past this already? Was it just remove SIG?
Sorry, you were on it for, it's right there. See where it says remove dash, oh no, it wasn't that one. It's slash remove dash sig space cloud dash provider.
Okay.
There we go. See, it's the area, committee, kind, language
Yeah.
priority sig. which
Okay.
is-
So
slash
remove. Okay.
remove
All right.
dash. I know it's like the least obvious thing possible because, and I think remove sig cloud dash provider, and I think API dash machinery has a dash in it. I'm pretty sure.
Okay.
We can try and see if it works. If it doesn't work, then we'll know.
Yay.
Hey,
Huzzah.
look at us.
All right. Cool.
Teamwork.
All right. Let's like I think we've done our job for now. Actually, we might want to check this one just because from a few months ago. I mean, I think we've looked at all these before. The prevent scale down. How is this a SIG Cloud Provider thing?
Don't know.
Because I think it says GKE was the thought process that someone had, but
I'm actually interested in the original issue was closed for no reason because sometimes they age out, but sometimes there is a reason and the person just doesn't agree with the reason. So I would be interested to see why it was closed. Uh-huh.
can we go to the top for a sec? There's one thing I want to see because I want to see. Oh no, this is. Oh, so yeah, it looked like it probably went rotten and got closed out, but
I
I'm
saw
still not
a
convinced
comment
this
in
is-
there. Well, I saw a comment in there that said something about this is an issue for cloud support. So I'm just curious who said that.
I mean, it's clearly an issue for cloud support.
Yeah,
what
I'm
is
wondering
that?
because he's quoting that. Who said that though?
Yeah, can we go to that comment?
This
from
should
Ben?
be. Yes, Ben said that. He's probably not wrong.
Yeah, I would reiterate that, right? This is there's an interesting thing. We do cloud provider GCP. We don't do GKE.
Oh, I
Right.
wouldn't. Yeah, definitely.
Right.
Oh,
Well,
sorry.
this
Go
is-
ahead.
So specifically, the pods they're talking about, like the Fluent D, are not installed by open source. That is installed by GKE. So, I mean, while I have been known to work on the GKE code base, no, I'm the only one here, and that's private code that needs to go to the GKE team, not to the open source.
Right. And maybe the thing that should be the most clear is like the fix will land, if there's a fix to be done, will land in GKE. It would not land in the cloud provider Azure code. So,
Well, I think we should use our new remove SIG powers to remove SIG Cloud Provider so this doesn't happen.
and weren't we also going to maybe close it? I mean, we don't have to close it, but like, this is
I would,
No.
what you might want to do is do like a life cycle stale.
Stale?
Stale. It basically means that we're accelerating the rate at
Ah.
which it
But we are
goes
allowed to
dead.
close things. Like we literally could close it if we wanted to.
We could. We're accelerating it, getting close. We're just leaving it open long enough for them to see it, and then it'll go dead shortly.
Okay.
So what do we just say, like stale or something, or
/ life cycle. Space
stale?
stale. That's it.
Nice.
I'm learning so much today, and you all
So
are
much
learning it with
prow.
me. Okay, cool. We've triaged ourselves like as much as we can here. The next one's from December
Fantastic.
23, so I'm gonna let that go for the moment.
And those are flaking tests.
I guess it's probably worth it just to look at the periodics to see how things look there. Thanks, Walter. Yeah, it looks nice and green. Cool.
Ooh.
Okay, so I've got a little to do for myself. I will post some sort of abstract in our SIG channel, and otherwise see
I'll
you all in
comment on
about
it.
2 weeks. Yeah.
And we do need to get that submitted, I think, before the 2 weeks. So we do
Yeah,
need to
we
work
need-
on that in the next few days.
Right. Like I'll try to put it up by tomorrow so we can at least have a little back and forth on it. And then hopefully we
Okay.
can submit it on Monday. And if anyone's interested in speaking or joining to speak, like please reach out to me. Happy to add more people to talk about this.
It looks like I'm likely to be there. I would really like to make sure we get other people a chance to speak, of course.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, totally. And if you're hesitant about this topic, like I'm willing to spend as much time as needed to kind of prep people or bring them up to speed. And I've written some documentation about what I think we should do with testing in the past. So there's material that can be reviewed as well.
All right. Thank you.
Yeah. Okay. If there's nothing else and no other topics, why don't we call this a meeting and take 15 minutes back?
Great. Take
Thanks,
care.
everybody.
Bye.